I just got a COVID vaccine. What's the probability that I suffer a horrible, debilitating side effect? Let's look at the data and find out. So it took me a while to actually get a COVID vaccine, mainly because, well, I'm an introvert and I never leave my basement. That and vaccines are actually really scary. It's a lot like an airplane. If you get on a plane, you'll be fine. Unless you're one of the 1 in a million passengers each year who gets, say, blown up by the Russians, or blown up by the Iranians, or maybe the plane just vanishes into the sea for no apparent reason. It's really horrifying to think about. And with respect to airlines, you have to trust that the makers of the plane, the maintainers of the plane, the flight crew running it, the government regulators looking after it, and of course the profit-driven corporations behind the whole thing are all doing good to keep you safe. Enough. Anyway, the fact that a few hundred passengers die every year in plane crashes while a few billion fly successfully tells me that there's less than a 1 in a million chance that I die in a horrific plane crash each given year. And well, that's enough to get me through the turbulent skies, shoulder to shoulder with a bunch of strangers. But on to vaccines. I thought I'd mentally prepare for my own inoculation by asking the question, how likely is it that this COVID vaccine will give me, say, Guillain-Barré syndrome, a horrible autoimmune disease that leaves people possibly paralyzed and even dead? A 2017 article in Neuroepidemiology concluded from a meta-analysis that the background rate of Guillain-Barré rises with age from about 1 in 100,000 for a person in his, say, 30s, to about 3 in 100,000 for someone in his or her 90s. They used a random effects negative binomial regression model. Yay stats! In the province of Alberta, there have been over 2 million people with double vaccine doses, and only 6 reported cases of Guillain-Barré, or GBS for short. Is that actually significant? Well, first, the Alberta government breaks down the number of vaccines administered by population brackets. Using this statistical model that was fitted by that previous article I talked about, we have that there are, 2.3 million people with 2 doses. By dumb luck, we'd expect 33.6 of them to get GBS in the next year. Now, 33.6 is a lot higher than 6, but there's missing information here. It isn't reported how long post-vax subjects are monitored. If we assume the answer is 1 month, I think that's a reasonable assumption, then the expected GBS cases would only be about 2.8 out of our 2.3 million vaccines. So, is 6 significantly larger than 2.8? Well, using a simple binomial test, the answer is maybe? The p-value is 6.4%, which is small, but not that small. If we assume these 6 people all got GBS in the first week after their vaccination, then the p-value is 0.006%, and that's actually super scary. If instead, however, these people got GBS in the first 6 weeks, then the p-value is only 19%, and the prevalence of GBS in the post-vaxxed population would be no worse than the background rate in the general population. Of course, there are other academic articles linking COVID, the actual disease, to Guillain-Barré, as that syndrome is known to follow from respiratory diseases. As I may now catch COVID, since lockdowns are over and society demands that I leave my cozy basement, I really like my basement, I figure that the probability of a horrible side effect is roughly about 1 in a million, just like the probability of dying in a horrible plane crash. The probability of dying from COVID, the actual disease, given my age bracket, is more like 1 in 3,000. That is without considering any underlying health factors because those aren't listed on the government's website. If there is a 1 in 100 chance that I catch COVID, then the probability of death for me is about 1 in 300,000. Now, I made up the 1 in 100 number, by the way. It could be lower if we had strict lockdowns and work from home orders. It may be a lot higher now that Alberta is open for business. In the end, life dictates that I leave my basement. The vaccine seems marginally less risky than risking catching the disease and trying to recover from it, especially now that society is open again. Here's hoping this all works out. Well, I'm 1 hour in and still feeling pretty good besides some pain in the arm. But did you ever notice that Bill Gates is actually quite handsome? I never noticed that before. Huh.